What is up guys, Wraec here with a new video, and today I want to show you guys a team that has surprised me a little bit because it features a hero that wasn't really used this season at all for PvP. Used to be a very cool PvP hero, but this season just didn't make it because, well, it's Shakir and he's a Mauler, and nobody really wants to run the Mauler faction skill this season because it's fairly weak. And thus this guy hasn't really made it into the light this season. But he still has a PvP team now that is fairly cool and is also quite fun. And I want to show you guys basically the strength of this team first, how it can work in an optimal case, where we will take the defender role, and then we will go over why it works and also how to counter it and why I don't think it will stick around. Also, we'll talk a little bit about charms for this guy and about his PvE capabilities and why you maybe, or why you definitely want to build the charms for him pretty soon. So the enemy we're fighting here is Ants. I saw it first on his account, this team, and I think it is really interesting. What we see here, first of all, Celestial Hypergene Tiles, level 39 skills, super high level. We see Wraec, we see Twins, we see Rainier in PvP. It's a hero you kind of don't see too often anymore, I have to say. And we also see Shakir there as a prime carrier on the Celestial Hypergene Tile. What does that mean? Means he gets an immediate 400 energy, and then after the allies cast a total of 4 ults, he also increases his attack and HP. And also, I mean, all the other heroes gain a ton of energy as well. That is the thing with our Celestial Hypergene Tile. We, on the other hand, we made us a little bit vulnerable to this team, quite intentionally so. We are using the team that this is probably the strongest against, a Graveborn team, featuring Thorin, featuring Ludovic, featuring Callan, a massive combination of survivability over here. We have Siren countering the enemy artifact, and we have Cryonaya, which would in this case be our winning condition, trying her to get the most damage, or trying her to here to get her to ult. Actually, what we can do is basically outlast the enemy for quite a long time with this comp, and I want to show you how this looks. So keep an eye out for this Shakir, because this fight's not going to last long. It's going to be quite the madness actually. So huge damage coming in at the start. We immediately lose the Siren. Look at the HP of that Ludovic over there, not looking healthy, actually gone. Actually already gone. Rainier taking out Cryonaya, which I still think is kind of funny because usually Rainier is quite useless. In this case, he takes out Cryonaya and basically becomes super strong, which is kind of funny. So losing Thorin here in a second, and while the Shakir is still in the ult, and this is the entire battle. Our entire defenses did do essentially nothing. We took a ton of damage immediately, 36 billion damage taken by Shakir. Madness, if you ask me. So why is that the case? How does that even work? And if we go into the replay, we notice one thing. First, he ults immediately at the start of the battle. That is explained through the Celestial Hypergene skill. And then jumps over. We take a ton of damage, like half of our HP is immediately gone at the moment he does his ult. And this is actually a part of his ult that is a little bit, well, overlooked, because usually it didn't play much of a role. It didn't play much of a role until we got to the point where we are now in this season, or in general to this season, because this season Shakir has a very special charm. And this charm is the splash damage charm. We already seen it on Arden, for example. What it does is when this hero deals damage to a target, it causes splash damage to the adjacent enemies. So basically the enemies up to 1 tile in the distance, and this splash damage is quite nasty because, well, if we have a huge hit that hits like 5 enemies, for example, well, it will hit all the other enemies again for every instance of damage on an enemy. So we end up hitting enemies multiple times with AoE attacks, making AoE attacks pretty strong. And as it just so happens, he has one. Shakir morphs into a wolf, smashes a tile, knocking the enemy there into the air and dealing 190% damage to enemies within 2 tiles. That is a huge range. That is basically half the battlefield. Half the battlefield. Madness. The range of this is global, so he can actually target any tile that he wants with it, which means he will almost always hit all the enemies if he targets it at the right position, if he targets it in the middle. He will try to take like the closest enemy usually. That is usually what he targets, which isn't quite optimal for his positioning, but often still works out so that he hits all the enemies. In our situation, he still hit our entire team with this attack, and then the splash damage charms took in and hit us again for multiple times of damage. In the video you could see that he hit us like 3 times. And the immediate ult comes from the 400 initial energy that gets top upped with 400 energy to the prime carrier from Celestial Hypogean, and that plays, interestingly enough, into his Mythic Plus that allows us to ult once we have more than 800 energy. And I mean, Ansi was running a Shakir that was plus 15, I think, which already can ult at 700 energy. So a little bit easier for him to ult. And then, I mean, that might still not really be meta, but the thing is, we also have another charm coming into play. And that charm we have seen quite a lot during my videos recently. And this is the charm that converts the damage of the hero behind or the Rainier, 40% of that to true damage, and increases the attack by 10%. And that is really what is punching through our defense here in such a nasty way. And let's fight this team again. And again, we are in the position to fight the enemy Shakir, and now I want to talk a little bit about why I don't think this is going to be meta for quite some time. First of all, we of course can counter an ult. Countering an ult is something we've done since Iron. One option for that is of course Lily May. Lily May in this situation is taken out of the equation. He purposely placed Nero over there, who has just the purpose to make Lily May basically not work, because she will immediately go and counter his ult and then not be able to counter Shakir's ult. There's another hero, however, that can counter ults, and that's Dunlinger. Dunlinger ult block, and suddenly there is no more Shakir block, no matter how much energy he gets. So this is the new threat. The new threat is like this first phase of Dunlinger taking out such teams. And this allows you to build a team that looks kind of like this. And this team uses Athalia, an absolute monster of a hero if you ask me. We have Bonnie in there, which we don't really need, but it's extra damage. It's kind of nice because we're also going to use Storm Strike spell. And I want you to keep an eye on that, how that is going to look. So, we have Shakir over there, gets teleported, has full energy, can't really do anything. And where is our Athalia? Athalia comes in, and that is the Shakir. So, the thing with Athalia in PvP is that even a hero like Shakir, even if that guy had ulted, even if he had done his ult, it wouldn't really have mattered. We no longer have this situation where we can make a hero just not die. It is very, very difficult to achieve that because we have huge true damage ults from Athalia. And with the charms and everything, she just hits for such a massive amount of damage that you don't really have to be afraid of anything. We have the dashes at the start, it's already taken on. Did you see that she one-shot an enemy? Just one-shot an enemy with her first ability. And then from full HP, she one-shot the Shakir. And even if the enemy had like a Heben or something, wouldn't have mattered. And that is why I think we are not going to see too much of Shakir there. I mean, like, certainly it's an interesting team. But what I also noticed is, if you take this team and you go against something like this with, I mean, we have a Paragon disadvantage here, keep that in mind. And you go against something like this, which is not even a Dunlinger team really, it is a common Wilder team. It's one of those Wilder teams where you have 3 heroes that basically can't die, plus yet now an Athalia there, and this is using Lily May. We tried that, it's insane damage. And if you just use that, I mean, we didn't get the early Shakir ult here just because we have that much of a Paragon disadvantage. Look how he stands there. Shakir just stood there, had nothing to do, because there's just no enemy here that he can attack. And in the end, just gets absolutely destroyed by Athalia. And really, you can counter that with Wilder teams with Athalia. You can use Dunlinger to kind of counter that. So that is why I think the meta that came so quickly is pretty much ended by Athalia, because you just don't get that sustain. You can counter out the burst. It's a little bit of a difficult one, but it is a cool team. And I thought it would be interesting to show to you guys that something like this exists or existed. I don't know. I mean, you should kind of keep that in mind. And Shakir is certainly a hero where it's worth summoning him. Very good S tier hero. Certainly on the upper end of like the Mauler heroes. I mean, who do we have there? Like Mauler wise, you can go Alsa, you can go Mikola, but You don't even need Smokey at Paragon necessarily, so you probably can go Shakir super early. I don't know where I ranked him last time I made the list for summoning here, but like you can probably go super early for him because such a nice PvP hero. Yeah, and that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe try out the Shakir team. Against Graveborn teams it's pretty cool, against sustain teams, against defense heavy teams it works fairly well. And other than that, as always, you can support me by going through my link on Lootbar, where you get the cheapest dragon crystals, as always, like just with the direct top-up or login top-up that you can go there, and you get the cheapest packs, cheapest dragon crystals. And if you go through the link, you actually get an extra coupon code that will give you 3% discount, and beyond that, you also support the channel a little bit, so that is very nice. Beyond that, I wish you a great day, and we'll see us in the next one.